Hey there. I wanted to do a couple of quick tips if I can get them in this week. I know it's already Thursday afternoon, but it's been a very busy week. We had midterms this week. But one of the concepts that we're talking about this week with Module 5 is developing effective teams. And I put up a video, hopefully you've watched it, of these two guys called the Passing Zone that are jugglers that also go to team building seminars for companies. Companies hold team building seminars all the time, and these guys go and they do this entertaining thing, like you'll see a lot of juggling in the video, but they also talk about the importance of the team functioning as a team, together as a unit, and knowing that combined as a whole they function better than they do individually. So if you get into the chapters for this week, one on the developing effective teams gets into quite a few of very important concepts for team building. And I know that I used a lot of these when I was working out in private industry. While I was a supervisor and a manager, I would rely on a lot of these things to build my teams up to have a group identity and think as a team. And so I might refer to some of that today as we look at this. But as the book states, there's 4 principal characteristics all good, strong teams have. Now, not all teams have these characteristics because not all teams are successful for a variety of reasons. Most of the time, it's because they don't hit one or more of these 4 principles. So when we are talking about teams, the first one is they have a level of cooperation. They build in the understanding that they have to rely on each other. They have to cooperate with each other. They have to hear each other out. They have to consider each other's ideas. They build a collaborative environment, and they know that for the team to survive, there needs to be an interdependence among the members of the team. And as you build your teams up, and I know it's probably a little bit more difficult to do this in a virtual type setting like we're in for this class, and to do it in 8 short weeks, and you don't really get to spend a lot of time with your teammates, but you learn what your team members' skill sets are, what are their weaknesses, what are their strengths, and you learn to rely on those strengths. And you also learn, if they have a weakness, you go to help them get through their weakest, they go through to help you with your weakness, because we all have strengths and weaknesses, right? And they learn to build that interdependence among each other. So if you remember back a couple of weeks ago, we talked about you've got the function dynamic of every team. Every team has a task-oriented function for the team. So there's that task function, but there's also the social function. And a lot of this collaborative interdependence is a result of the social function. You have to do those silly team building exercises that a lot of places will do. I've worked for companies that went on team building exercises, and they do, the traditional one is you fall back in, all your teammates catch you, and you learn to build trust by doing these kinds of things. That level of trust is actually extremely important for the team to survive. If you get together one day and you say, okay, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. We rely on each person to get their part done. We don't worry about checking up on each other, or, oh, I've got to do it all myself because I can't rely on these people to do it for me, or they won't do it well enough. That's one of those things that kills teams. You've got to learn to rely on each other and build that interdependence. And that's how teams get stronger and become more successful. The book refers to that as the working together imperative. They know they've got to work together, and they need to work with all of the team members. Some teams will have the wallflower who doesn't contribute a lot, or they're, very strong introverts struggle with team activities because they don't really like being involved a lot in social aspects. But you've got to learn through your roles to pull those people in, because they are just as vital to the team as the one who talks the most. Sometimes they're even more vital because when they speak, it's something you probably should listen to. So that's one aspect. Their level of cooperation is huge. They understand the need to depend on each other. The second one is they appreciate diversity. And that video, the juggling video, talks a little bit about diversity too. The more, and studies have shown this over and over and over, university studies, company studies, private studies have repeatedly proven the fact that the more diverse the people in your group are, the stronger and better the results are in that group. So getting as much diversity as you can is a big bonus, because you see things your way. And if you go back to Comm 102 and we talked about culture, everybody grows up in their culture and they see things from their culture's standpoint. And other people see things from their culture standpoint. Sometimes we see people from other cultures think, man, they're really weird. And they look at us and think, man, they're really weird. What it is they have a very different view of the world based off of their culture and our culture. And the advantage of that is when we look at something, we see it from our vantage point. We actually are kind of blinded by our culture. And people from other cultures are blinded by their cultures, but they're blinded by different things. So it's possible that somebody from a different diversity set will see something from a very different standpoint than, say, someone from my culture would. And because of that, they catch things that other people don't catch. And it's a way to sort of check and balance each other. You come up with an idea and you say, hey, I think this will work great. And somebody goes, you're on to something, but here's a problem with it. And it's something you never would have seen because you're looking at it from your point of view. And remember, perspectives are always different from everybody. Another concept from Comm 102. So you learn to appreciate the diversity of skills and you look for complementary skills. If I know that I'm good at some things and I'm really not good at some other things, then in order to achieve a goal, I want to find somebody who's really good at these things I'm not good at. And by combining those, you become stronger as a whole than the individual parts are. So you seek out diversity, you appreciate diversity, and you understand that the more different ways of looking at things you can bring in, the better off you are overall. And this is true too, like in workplace situations. Maybe you're put on a project and there's no financial reason to have a financial person on it, but you want to bring one in anyway, because they look at it from a very different perspective. It's a diverse view that most people don't have. And so they come in and you're talking about something and they say, hey, but what about this? And you're like, oh my God, I never would have seen that. So diversity is a huge contributor to team success. Really strong working teams, effective teams understand that. The third one is they build a group identity. They see things from the group's standpoint. We're there to serve a purpose. And so we operate as a unit for that particular purpose. I know that several places I worked at had different departments, and they would let the departments, they would give them money and say, you guys go out and design and buy t-shirts for your department. And each department in the plan would have its own unique t-shirt. That's part of that team building thing. But then it's also, you're combining them into this identity and you start in your mind thinking in a we mindset. So that's very important. We versus the me mindset. And this goes back to earlier in the semester, more of a, you want more of a collectivistic view in a group dynamic. Collectivistic groups operate and succeed much better than individualistic groups, because individualistic mindsets are very me oriented. I'm going to do, I'll contribute to the group, but I'm going to only do it in such a way that makes me look really, really good. And I'm not going to worry so much about what the other people are doing. And it, something might come up that would be better for the group, but it might hurt me. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what makes me, that's a me mentality, and it hurts groups overall. And you build this group mindset where everything you do is for the group to make the group succeed. Since majority of people here in the US are individualistic culture, because the US, and this goes back to 102, and it might have been in the book, I can't remember, for this class too, the US is the most individualistic leaning culture on earth. it's very hard for us sometimes to understand a collectivistic view of the world, such as countries like Japan, Korea have, where everything is for the good of the whole, or the good of the society. If you go look at Star Trek, even in that, it came up because Kirk was very me oriented. Spock being from Vulcan, Vulcans had a very we orientation, and one of the famous Spock comments was, the need of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. That's a collectivistic view. Really, if good, effective teams build a strong group identity and learn to think in terms of the group, and they think in terms of we and not me. So they don't leave anybody out, they get everybody involved, and they do what's best overall for the group. And then the fourth one is time and resources. This sort of falls back into that last one, because if everybody has limited time and then limited resources, and I can approach things like in this class I'm working, let's say I'm working on a team in the class, I can work on getting my personal grade up and not really worry so much about getting the rest of my teammates' grade up, because I really only care about me. I'm not getting graded as a team, I'm getting graded as an individual. No, you're getting graded as a team as well, which you've probably figured that out by now. So you take your time and your resources and you make them be a commitment to the team, and the team getting to their goals. And sometimes we have to sacrifice our personal time or our personal resources in order to make the team's time and the team's resources better to achieve a particular goal. And that falls right back in line with that we versus me mindset. You've got to have a we mindset, even with your time and resources. And yeah, I've got some free time, really need to have this done for the team, but I'd really like to do this for me. And in that kind of a situation, really effective team members will do what's necessary for the team in order for the team to survive. So that's 4 principles that really strong, effective teams have. And if you look at the ones that are really viewed as being great teams, you can pick sports teams and you start analyzing those sports teams, they have all of these principles in the way they operate. And you can actually see it. I've seen it so many times with sports teams in particular. They have all 4 principles, they practice all 4 principles, and they succeed. So I'm trying to keep these shorter because I realize I get super windy. So think about the teams you're working on, and do they have the 4 principles? And where they don't, work on building that principle to where it is strong, because overall that's going to help you in both the social dynamic and the functional dynamic of your team. I'll talk to you later.